Hi everyone, my name is Katie and I am a fantasy writer working on a fantasy series that I'm hoping to self-publish and also tracking the progress here on YouTube. If you are new here, I do have a couple of other videos about my writing process, and today I want to talk about what you do when things maybe aren't going the way that you were hoping, how to pick yourself back up when you get knocked down, and that sort of thing. Not that I've been knocked down, but I've just been busy and I got stuck with kind of like a head cold, like a sinus thing this week. But yeah, so the last time that we talked, I talked about how I have been working on my character archetypes and sort of solidifying the kinds of people that will inhabit the world and some of the symbols that are going to be important to the world, whether that's to certain cultures or to specific storylines or whatever. Where I should be right now with my world building is like really getting into the metaphysics, determining things like the source of magic and all of that. You know, not necessarily things that the reader will know for certain, but things that like I need to figure out for the story just to know the mechanics of it in my head and what is possible and not possible in this world. So I guess you can say that it's sort of like I'm defining the boundaries of the story by narrowing, you know, the things that I want to focus on. I'm struggling to figure out, I think, my audience for this series, because I have some specific ideas for characters and plot lines. It's stuff that I've wanted to write about for a while. This story could fit in this world. I'm trying to both allow myself the creative freedom to try out the stories, you know, that I want to tell, but also, of course, I want to think about who the story is going to be for. I've always wanted to do fantasy, but for a really long time I thought that A, I thought that I wanted to do traditional publishing, but B, I also thought that I wanted to do young adult stories or even middle grade novels rather than adult fantasy. I feel like I've had kind of an interest change since then. I mean, honestly, like the age group that I feel like I do want to target is really more like the early 20s sort of age range, because like several years ago, there was sort of a push for a new age category. In addition to having young adult and adult, having new adult, which would represent college-aged characters. But new adult didn't really take off in terms of a broader category. So I think for the most part, it would be categorized under adult, which is fine. Like, it's not that I'm specifically still set on trying to write young adult stories. I'm trying to think about who my target reader could be, what my like ideal like fan or audience would be. I'm in like a weird stage of the creation process where like I have to start making a lot more decisions, and while obviously I can go back and change anything that doesn't work, making those decisions is both exciting because it helps narrow my focus and gives me guardrails to work within, but it's also like, it's so scary because I'm like, well, what if I'm making the wrong decision? And again, I know that I can go back and do it again and change things that don't work. I think it's a fear I'm gonna end up doing work that doesn't matter, doesn't get used. However, having gone through this experience before, I have to talk myself through this. Having gone through this experience before, I know that even though I have written things that didn't end up in final or later editions or versions of the story, those earlier things that got cut from the story weren't useless. They were helpful in helping me get to the point of getting the story out and having something to then edit and change. And that's the thing that I think that I just needed to sit here and remind myself about, is that I need to just do it. And I think that that's a lesson that I've had to learn, or a lesson that I have been learning and am getting better with. Putting in a little bit of work and showing up as much as you can and doing something as consistently as you can and giving even 10%, if that's all you can give, those little efforts add up over time and do make a difference. Even though I'm sitting here rambling and I haven't really been working on my writing this week, and I'm in like a weird part of the world building where I'm feeling really unsure of myself, I am continuing to show up because I know that if I do, eventually it will click. And that's the other lesson here, is that like, I think that probably at least 50% of anyone's success comes from just showing up and just doing it. I think right now I just need to have faith in that process. And sometimes you have to say that, hey, I'm a writer and I didn't write this week, and that's okay, because I know that I can try again next week. I know that as long as I continue to show up and try again, it will work out. I think that showing up feels really scary, but is an easy thing that you can do to prove to yourself that you can do hard things. I give myself credit if I'm having a bad day and I know that I don't have the brain capacity to write anything, if I can like show up to my desk and sit down and turn on the computer and maybe watch a video on world building, or even show up and watch an episode of a show, I actually count that as showing up for myself and showing up for my writing, because there's always the chance that something that I see in a video or read in an article or just see online while I'm at my desk might spark some inspiration and might give me an idea, and I can quickly, open up a document and write it down. Sometimes it's just not working. At that point, I give myself the credit for showing up and trying, and I release myself of any more obligation. And maybe that's being too easy on myself for some people, but for me, I found that this has worked so well for me and proves to my brain that just showing up isn't scary. So then I'm no longer afraid of showing up, and then I'm in a habit of showing up. Getting my life even to a place where I can be literally right now sitting here and talking about my writing in addition to doing my writing as a mom and a wife and daughter and friend, and also works sometimes at preschool. I was able to show up little by little and prove to myself that I could do all of this. So today is February 20th, so I'm going to give myself the next 8 days or so until the month is over to finalize some of the big decisions that I'm making for the roles in my world, and then I'm hoping to start physical world building in March. I'm someone that has always struggled with self-imposed deadlines. I'm not motivated by rewards. So I was a good student in school, but that's because I was a people pleaser and I liked getting good grades and I liked doing school well. Part of it too was the shame and humiliation that I would feel at not being a good student. I definitely have perfectionist tendencies, but I also am a huge procrastinator. Even all the way through college, I was always the kind of student that would stay up the night before something was due or there was a test or whatever the next day. I would always wait till the last minute, just that pressure and adrenaline and the fear of not doing well worked really, and it just worked for me. But when you're self-imposing deadlines, it's harder to punish yourself because I can just not. There's no serious threat there, I guess. So for a long time, I struggled with setting goals and deadlines at all. I also am at a point in my life where you know, it was just the new year and I just had my birthday in January. So I turned 31. Just like being in a new decade of life, I feel like that's sort of a significant milestone. I'm in like a new era and thinking about life and aging, where I'm at with what I want to do with my life. And it's sort of something that really pushed me to settle down and really focus on my writing, being someone who's now a year into my 30s and I still haven't done the thing that I've been trying to do for the last 10 years. So there's a little bit of a embarrassment and guilt that comes along with that is kind of feeling effective right now. So I've had a little bit more success with setting deadlines for myself, because it's great to want to create the best story that you can, but like you gotta set some deadlines or else, you know, you might work on that story forever. Yeah, that's me right now. Sort of a fumbling mess, struggling with making decisions, worrying if they're the right ones, worrying about running out of time, worrying about, you know, will I get around to all the stories I want to tell? Probably not. So how do I prioritize the ones that are really the ones I want to tell? Like, oh, I don't know. Why does it feel like I'm having an existential crisis? It's hot in here. Whenever I sit down and film, I want it, you know, it's probably because of the lights. I've got that one, and then I've also got light here, but I'm also next to the vent, and because it's like winter, we have the heater on. I just get like really sweaty and get all worked up, okay? And not to like put a huge downer on everything, but I think another thing that I'm struggling with is because I want to target that 20 something age range. A lot of the issues that people who are actually in their young 20s are facing right now, I struggle with wanting to write something that is both relatable and feels important, but also isn't something that depresses me too much in the creation process. I want my story to be real. Can I accomplish that if I don't create a fascist world for my stories to take place in? Like, I mean, yes, you can always connect with an audience and through other ways, but I don't know. I guess I mentioned it in my first writing video, how difficult it can be to show up and be creative when you're processing grief or just feeling grief, how difficult it is for me, and I'm sure for others right now, to show up and be creative when there's really horrible things happening. And I almost feel like it's something that I can't ignore with my stories because it's happening right now around me. Okay, this is just turning into therapy for me, so I should probably turn off the camera. There's just so much to talk about. All right, this week's kind of a bust, but here we are. We get knocked down, but we get up again. Da, 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 da. We're gonna try again next week. We're gonna try to knock it out of the park, make some decisions, put some boundaries on this world, start figuring things out. Hopefully next time I sit down to do this, we'll have better news and more updates, more in the way of actual world building being done. So thank you so much for watching this. If you enjoyed, it would mean a lot to me if you subscribe to the channel. I upload videos every Sunday, and I kind of do like an every other week writing check-in, and also I like to talk about certain topics that are relevant to the book industry or fantasy as a genre, that kind of thing, storytelling. So if any of that is interesting to you, please subscribe to the channel. And yeah, thanks again so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!